There is a very important question that is asked today in our gospel. Who do you say I am? Who do you say I am? Our gospel begins with Jesus asking his disciples another question. Who do people say that the Son of Man is? Now, the disciples have not yet connected Jesus with the title of Son of Man, so they throw out their Jewish traditional thoughts on the matter. And that line of thinking is that the Son of Man is John the Baptist, the Son of Man is Elijah, Jeremiah, or one of the other prophets. But then Jesus asks another question. Who do you say I am? So there's a change. It goes from what the people think about the Son of Man to a lot more personal question. Who do you, disciples, say that I am? Now, this is a very big moment for the disciples. Remember, the disciples are students. Jesus is their rabbi, their teacher. And they need to treat this question like a review. What have they learned about this Jesus that they have been following? You can look at it as a way for the disciples to define their relationship, maybe redefine their relationship with Jesus. It's like that moment when you are dating someone and you or they ask, so what are we? It is natural for us to identify what we have with one another. Are we friends? Are we acquaintances? Are we pals? Are we significant others? I still remember the night I asked Kristen the question, will you be my girlfriend? And I still remember being nervous that day and excited and getting the gusto to say, will you be my girlfriend? And she looked at me and she said, I thought I already was. And it's been that way ever since. This is that moment for the disciples. How will they see Jesus? And how will they see this relationship they have with Jesus? So Jesus is saying, what am I to you? And Peter answers, Jesus, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Now, this is a very significant moment because for the first time in the entire Gospel of Matthew, the titles of Messiah and Son of God are both used at the same time to identify Jesus. What Peter is saying is, Jesus, you are the God, you are the one that God promised us. It should be a great moment. It should be a wonderful moment right when Jesus says, you are right, Peter. But instead, Jesus explains to Peter and the disciples what being the Messiah, being the Son of Man, really means. The Messiah will not be celebrated. The Messiah will not be cheered. This Son of Man will be rejected. The Son of Man will be executed. And that is not what Peter wants to hear. You see, in Peter's eyes and in the eyes of the people who have been struggling, the Jewish people and Israel, the Messiah is supposed to be the next great king. A king who will usher in a new age of freedom, but more importantly, a new age of power for the Jewish people. And with everything that Jesus has done with the healing, the teaching, the feedings, and the talking back to the religious leaders, the disciples had a lot of reason to think that something good is going to happen. But in the eyes and mind of Peter, nothing good comes out of Jesus dying. So, probably not the best move. Peter tells Jesus how he feels. He does two things that a student should never do to a teacher. So for the young ones who are starting school or just starting school, please keep these things in mind. First off, Peter pulls Jesus aside. Now, when you read that, that may not sound like much, but Have you ever had a friend, let's just say, who will remain nameless, who maybe does something very loud and boisterous, and the first thing you want to do is grab that person and just move them away so people will stop staring at you and them? You know, with football season coming up, you may have friends who get a little rowdy at these events. So it's just kind of like, hey, let's move over here. Well, that is really what Peter is doing. He is dragging Jesus away. So another way of thinking of this is, as Peter is dragging Jesus away, what he's really saying is, Jesus, you are embarrassing me. Stop it. Now, the other no-no Peter does is that he rebukes Jesus. To rebuke someone is to reprimand that person severely, to take that person to task. So, if you think back to the question Jesus asked, who do you say I am? Now, Peter is really saying, Jesus, you are an embarrassment and you are a fool. And again, to all the students out there, don't do that. Please don't, okay? But in this exchange, I want you to notice the exclamation points that are involved. That means we have what I like to call a shouting match. There's a shouting match between Peter and Jesus. Peter is yelling, Jesus, you are telling me things I don't want to hear. Now, while all this is going on, we can certainly pile on Peter. I mean, Peter is the guy who says one thing and usually ends up doing something else. Peter's the one who says, I'll never leave you, Jesus. What happens? Well, I don't know that guy. And something like this. Jesus, you are the man. You are the one we've waited for. Jesus, stop saying those things. How dare you? So we can pile on Peter for his words and his actions, but while Peter is saying these words, there is another force at play. And it is a darker force. You see, someone else is using Peter. Someone else is speaking through Peter. This someone else was someone who at least once in our gospel has tried and failed to turn Jesus away from Jesus' appointed task. And rather than giving up, this someone, this dark force, has stayed around just off stage, keeping an eye on what Jesus is saying and doing. This person, this someone, is ready for a moment to strike again, like our lesson today. But here's the thing. Even though this someone is off stage, Jesus always knew that this dark force was there. And that someone is revealed in verse 23 when Jesus shouts, "Get behind me, Satan." I believe Jesus is not only rebuking Peter, more importantly, he is rebuking Satan. He is revealing what Satan thought was a secret that he could hide, and hide his whereabouts. But that's not true. It was never true. Satan tries to use Peter, a trusted disciple, to be a stumbling block for Jesus' mission. And this has been a very successful strategy for Satan. It has worked on Adam, it worked on Eve, it worked on Saul and David, and hold on, let me check. Yeah, it's worked on everyone up until now. But Jesus knows what Satan is trying to do. So Jesus takes this moment to show Peter and to remind us that Satan is not fighting another Adam. Satan is not fighting another David. Satan is now fighting with the Son of the living God. And that is a fight that the devil cannot win. Now, that doesn't mean that the devil isn't trying. The devil will always be trying. Martin Luther wrote that the devil here among us, the devil is here among us, struggling and striving to turn us out of the heaven in which we are through Christ. And to this day, the devil continues to speak through people. Now think about this. Just think about this. This is something that was on my mind throughout all the vacation. And 99% of it was great. It was calming. I just could not stop thinking about this. Think about how some churches close their doors and they close their arms to people who are of different races, different sexuality, different politics, different social class. There's a list. And actually, I believe about 96, 99% of it comes down to politics and sex. And that is sad. That is sad. And let me ask you this. How many of your friends and family have you stopped talking to because of politics or something they put on social media? How many of you have stopped talking to people because they think differently than you? They've had a different life story than you. How many of you only listen to certain news channels or personalities or politicians that tell you what you want to hear, but they never do anything for you? You see, this is how the devil works. And the devil, unfortunately, is really good at what he does. But our God is better. When Jesus tells Satan to go away, Satan cannot fight back. Satan can't even respond to Jesus. All that Satan can do is retreat. Because the devil cannot get Jesus to turn away from saving us. The devil cannot get Jesus to stop loving us. The devil cannot and will not. As an example, look at what Jesus does to Peter. Or I should say what Jesus does not do to Peter. After Peter's actions, if he is this student who is talking this way to his teacher, that's true grounds for expulsion, right? Get out of the group, Peter. But Jesus doesn't do that. Jesus does not send Peter away. Instead, he looks to Peter to be one of the cornerstones of the faith, one of the rocks of this mission. And that is the name that Peter is given by Jesus, the rock. Not a rock, but the rock. And to call anyone the rock, traditionally, back then, was the greatest of compliments because the rabbis applied that word, that specific word, to Abraham. Abraham was the rock in which the nation of Israel and the purpose of God were founded. And in the Old Testament, you see the word rock used again and again to describe God himself. And so, rather than being cast away or thrown out, Peter has now been named rock. Now, and what that means is for us, Peter is the first stone of the whole church. Maybe in a way, he's the first member in the church of Christ. Now, everyone who makes today still makes the same confession as Peter. And everyone who makes that same confession is another stone added into the church of Christ. And I think it's very important that what I say next is heard by all of you, and especially to the Myers and Hayes, and especially Virginia. Each and every one of you get the same grace that Peter got. Each and every one of you get the same protection that Peter got. And each and every one of you get the same love that Peter got. Each and every one of you will always get the same love from God. Now, if you came here today, and first off again, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. If you come here today wondering what can God see in you, I hope that my answer will be a starting point for you. And I want you to leave with this thought. Whenever you ask God, God, who do you say I am? God's answer will be, you are welcomed, you are loved, you are worthy, and you are my child. And thanks be to God for that. Amen.